Hello friend, good morning to all of you. Today we are going to learn a short story by Catherine Mansfield. Catherine Mansfield was a prominent modernist writer who was born and brought up in New Zealand. She wrote short stories and poetry under the pen name Catherine Mansfield. When she was 19-year-old, she left colonial New Zealand and settled in England, where she became a friend of D.H. Lawrence, Virginia Woolf, and so many others in the Bloomsbury group. Mansfield was diagnosed with pulmonary tuberculosis in 1917 and she died in France at the age of 34. So, a great short story writer, or we can say a prose as well as a poetess, a prose writer as well as a poetess who left this world at the age of 34. She has written so many short stories and she is so famous for her modernist writing. She has presented a real nature of modern society, we can say a wealthy society. The present story, A Cup of Tea, is her well-known short story. It is published in 1922. In the Storyteller in May. It later appeared in the Dove's Nest and Other Stories 1923. Her short stories first appeared in Melbourne in 1907, but literary fame came to her in London after the publication of a collection of short stories called In a German Pension. This present short story deals with an upper class woman. She is a protagonist. Her name is Rosemary Fell. She is a beautiful lady, a rich woman. She has her own desire. She has a good friend. She is intellectually as well as socially rich like her friends. And whenever chance comes, she tries to show all these things in her parties, we can say in the company of her friends. So, through this story, Catherine Mansfield shows that whatever the status a woman have, after all, they are a woman because they shows their nature as a female. And in this story, Rosemary Fell at the end shows her nature. She is a rich, she is intellectual, she knows the life of this world, but still at the end of this story she is jealous of that beggar girl because her husband praise her, so that she has as a woman some limitation. So this is the introduction of Catherine Mansfield and her story A Cup of Tea. Here we are going to see the characters in that story. Which story? A Cup of Tea. There are only 4 characters, but who is the most important character? That is Rosemary Fell, because it is a short story, and in a short story one character is the protagonist and the story deals around that character. Whatever happen in the story is related to the protagonist. So Rosemary Fell is a protagonist in this story, and each and every action in the story, plot in the story, deals with Rosemary Fell. Rosemary Fell is a very wealthy woman, and she is not simply wealthy. The author brings out now by writing that Rosemary went for shopping from Paris to London. She bought countless flowers from one amongst the foremost modern streets in London. At the look at the look too, she would throw her weight around by telling them her likes and dislikes. She was a clannish, quite an individual. She had the antique look. From that she shopped to herself and therefore continuously most well like to travel there. So Rosemary Fell is a different kind of character in the story. She shows her whims. She shows as a female, what we can say, as a female, she shows her features, her limitations, her real nature. The second character in this story is Miss Smith, a young, we can say, a small, we can say, a girl. She is a poor girl, we can say a beggar girl. And that girl is picked up by Rosemary from one street, and she was showing, who Rosemary was showing, that she is very generous, very kind, so that she brings that girl, beggar girl, Miss Smith, at her home. But Miss Smith is not ready to adjust herself there. The next character in the story is Jenny, and Jenny is a housemaid of Rosemary Fell. The next fourth character that is also important in this story, because that character Philip, he is the husband of Rosemary, who gives, what we can say, twist to the story, who brings the story to the end. So Philip is the husband of Rosemary.